Mexico City is cosmopolitan, but it's a historic city with oodles to do, a rich culture, and it's highly affordable for a solo traveler destination.
This is Solo Travel Talk. Your solo travel advisor is Astrid Clements.
Many listeners know Astrid is fresh off a visit to Mexico City, and as your solo travel advisor, she is always on the lookout for what to do and what to avoid. Plus, she wants to get as many tips as she can muster so a solo traveler like you can have an amazing trip. I'm producer Catherine O'Brien. In episode 70, Astrid profiled some of the sights and experiences of Mexico City. Take a listen if you haven't already. In this episode, Astrid gives you her do's and don'ts and tips for enjoying Mexico City as a solo traveler. Back to Astrid.
Basically, your dollar goes so far. You cannot really believe, or Americans can't believe how much they can stretch their dollar. So that makes it even more fun. But it has beautiful historic architecture. Then it has some of the most outstanding new architecture, new modern buildings that I've seen anywhere in the world. Tons of museums, markets galore, vibrant art and fashion scene, and some of the best food on the planet. I mean, I'm telling you, the culinary options from the street food to the Michelin star restaurants are just outstanding. It to the point where you get a little stressed when you're trying to figure out where really you want to eat. And then also they have great 5-star hotels and some really super 4-star hotels that are very affordable. I stayed personally in the Hotel Geneve, which is a historic hotel right there on the edge of the Roma neighborhood. Just a beautiful hotel, $200 a night. I mean, it was great. It was absolutely great. So Mexico City is definitely overlooked travel destination for the solo traveler. But it's interesting, fun, and exciting, and affordable without having too many tourists everywhere. Because one of the things that I have really been noticing is some of the cities or the destinations that are on most people's bucket list have become overrun with tourists to the point where the residents in the city leaders are starting to put in a lot of different things to try to help prevent just the decimation almost of what's good to see and do in their culture. But Mexico City is overlooked. There's very few tourists there. So in a certain way, that's a plus.
We're about to spoil it right here with the show, though, right?
Okay, so for some basic do's and don'ts when you're traveling to Mexico City, I'm going to preface this section with, you can't do it all in one visit. I mean, I was astounded how much really there was to do. And I did a lot of research before I went, but I thought I was going to be able to do a lot more than I actually could. One of the reasons was it is truly a huge city and it's spread out. And then on top of that, it's got probably the worst traffic problem I have ever experienced anywhere in the world. There are so many cars, and every day during rush hour, I mean, it's basically gridlock everywhere. So it's a big problem. So here are my do's and don'ts, and I'm going to start with typically what I always start with is do extensive pre-trip research to the point where you can narrow down a list of must-dos, wanna-dos, and then other. Because if you don't, you're going to get stressed out by the third day because there's so much to do and you haven't really decided which is maybe better or interests you more, and you're just kind of winging it a little bit. And let me tell you, I strongly advise not to do that in Mexico City because you might only see half of what you really want to see, and that's a shame. Okay, second, along the same lines, create a flexible daily itinerary and definitely organize it by neighborhoods. Figure out what you want to do, what your must-dos are, and get a map, Google, or, use your apps or whatever, or go to a bookstore and get a map of Mexico City and plot. I mean, you might not want to go that far to plot it exactly the way it is, but know the neighborhoods where you want to eat at particular restaurants, the things that you want to do, because that will allow you to do and enjoy Mexico City much more. Okay? Then the next thing is the first day, I would really highly suggest that you just plan to kind of take it slow and easy, because Mexico City is 7,000 plus feet above sea level. It is the altitude can get you. I was discussing it with my mother because I didn't actually realize how much it would affect me. And my mother said yes. She said she was kind of nauseated when she was there. And I didn't experience that, but I did experience I was more tired than normal. But one of the things I like to do when I'm either getting in or I've had a long, long flight and I know I don't have my normal full energy gas tank when I arrive, or I'm going to try to deal with jet lag and really wear myself out. I like to do the hop on, hop off bus. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but for a solo traveler, especially like to a big city like Mexico City, the first day to get on one of those buses, sit on the top, plug in your earplugs, listen to the music and the commentary, it gives you a good feel for the different areas, and you learn something, and you're just being driven around, so you can relax, but you're still absorbing the place where you are. So I think that's really great, and I wouldn't even hop on and hop off. I'd just stay on it.
Hop on.
But this particular tour company, I mean, Mexico City is so large, it actually has 5 routes. Yes, 5 routes. 3 of them are where most of the things are located, but the other 2 really are pretty good too. So that just gives you an idea about just how huge Mexico City is and how much there is to do, see, etc. So take it easy the first day. 4th, Mexico City logistics. Like I said, terrible, terrible traffic problem. Probably Uber is your best bet in Mexico City if you have the app and you're used to using it. The taxis are okay. I personally don't like taxis. I just don't like taxis. Now, I will get in them, and this is a tip. I'll get in them, but I never hail them off the street in certain cities, in cities where I don't really speak the language, and I might be concerned a little bit about my safety for whatever reason. So I'll always go to a hotel, or I'll get my concierge at my hotel to arrange for a taxi to take me to a particular place. Then, I might finish that particular area eating somewhere. I'll ask the maitre d' at the restaurant to call me a taxi. When you do that, then the taxi cab driver knows he has been booked by a certain person. So you have some semblance of protection in terms of safety and maybe not driving you all over town and having a double fare. But that's a tip that I strongly urge you to do. So, and then if you want to do some things, like I hired an actual driver for 2 days, and one evening I had a guide and a driver because I wanted to go to a mariachi evening and go to the Gibaldi Square where all the mariachis are. And then there was a beautiful show at the Guadalajara de Noches. And so it was an evening of about 4 or 5 hours. And, I was not comfortable at staying out till midnight, even though there's lots of people there. So I got a guide and a driver. But the bottom line is if you're going somewhere late at night, or if you're going somewhere kind of out of the city, which I did, and then I wanted to do something else in 2 different neighborhoods because of the amount of time I had to spend at one place, there was no way I could have done that easily with a cab. And I just felt like this is a good expenditure of the money. It was a little less than $100. And Mexico City is affordable. You can have fun like a VIP, and you'd be surprised that it doesn't cost you that much. So I suggest getting a driver, or if you use the taxis, this is how I suggest you do it. Plus, the taxis that are official are the pink and white taxis, and they have CDMX on them. So those are the ones that you want to get into. Okay. Then they have a really good metro. Now, I'm not a metro girl, but I will do it. When I went on the food tour, our guide took us on the metro, and it was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. But if you are comfortable with metros, don't go during the rush hour because, my gosh, it is like sardines. And that's from 7 to 10 and 5 until 9. So those are some times when you would want to use the metro. But let me tell you, the metro, unless you speak Spanish and you're real comfortable with doing it, they're hordes of people, period. Then the last thing is, in terms of logistics, try to walk as much as possible. Mexico City has a lot of parks, beautiful parks, and I found many of the areas very walkable. And I felt very comfortable. I didn't feel in any kind of way that it was dangerous. Now, with that said, there are pockets of areas in all the neighborhoods that you have to be careful of. But that's what you ask your concierge to show you. If you are going to be walking in a particular neighborhood, what streets or particular areas within that neighborhood that you just want to avoid. And, that's all you need to do. Okay, 5 here again. Because of the high altitude, you got to pace yourself when traveling to Mexico City. You can't overdo it, and that's exactly what I did. I mean, the first day I was just blowing and going. I mean, by the time it got to be 7:38, and I was having a cerveza and a dinner. It was so nice, too. It was right there in the main square in the historic center. And this beautiful restaurant was kind of open air, but it did have a roof on it. So you could hear the music in the square, and you could see the sunset, and then the lights come up on all the gorgeous buildings. I mean, it was just delightful. But my legs were killing me, and I was so tired. I thought, well, I guess I'm just getting old or something. But by the 3rd day, I couldn't do anything in the afternoon. I just scheduled a 2-hour massage and just said, I'm just going to really just veg out. And because I was staying in Mexico City for a week, I wasn't too worried about it because I do allow myself some downtime. But the point is if you don't pace yourself, you're going to hit this brick wall, unless you are super in shape. But I'm pretty in shape, but that's not it. It's that altitude. Yeah. And if you're not used to it, it's going to catch up with you. With that, drink a lot of water. That's another thing. Mexico City tends to be dry and hot. And the more water you drink, the better you will feel. because you're eating different foods. A lot of them are very spicy, the altitude, the heat and everything. So water is basic, and you'll feel much better. Number 6, dress conservatively. Basically try to blend in. And the Mexicans really do. They're very conservative in their dress. You don't have to have anything ethnic or like all the embroidery stuff and the longer skirts and everything. They're pretty, and a lot of people still wear them, but just basic clothes. Conservative, so you can go into the churches, etc. In one tip, don't wear a hat in church, because I went into the church, into the big cathedral, and somebody came and tapped up. He said, "You got to take your hat off." So dress conservatively. Definitely good walking shoes. The cobblestones in some of the neighborhoods are killer. I mean, I was talking to somebody about how I felt like these cobblestones here were just like harder than concrete. And he said, yes, like walking on bowling balls. I mean, they're like just that gets to you. So you got to have good walking shoes. You want your walking shoes to be closed-toed because the streets are dirty. And the markets are dirty. So you don't want to be exposed to maybe getting sick. You might have a little blister on your foot or just something. And flip-flops, you don't see flip-flops in Mexico City. It's closed-toed shoes. So, and make sure they're good walking shoes. Also, in terms of dress, is you need to bring an umbrella or a rain topper with you every day. The day you don't bring it, you're going to regret it. You don't think it's going to rain, but really it rains almost every afternoon. And I was glad I had it most every day. One day I forgot it. It rained, and I was on the hop off bus, actually. Oh, no. So I kind of got a little wet on the top. Then I finally went under, on the ground floor of it. But you have to think like that, because you'll be surprised. It rains it like it does in Louisiana in the summer. And then loose-fitting, breathable, comfortable fabrics. Don't anything that's too clingy or anything like that, because it's gonna make you uncomfortable. So things like maxi dresses and tunic tops and kind of billowy like pants. That's all really good. But don't be sloppy, because the Mexicans really, they're basic conservative people, and they're clean and they're not sloppy. And if you are sloppy, they're not going to have quite as much respect for you. And when you lose that as a solo traveler, some things can happen. So just dress just real nice. White shirt, black pants, good walking shoes, umbrella in your backpack, you hit a little hat, you'll be ready to roll. Okay. Keep going. Master a few of the basic Mexican phrases. One thing I was so shocked, in such a big and cosmopolitan city as Mexico City, not that many people spoke English. So it really is important that you say a few things, because Mexicans, they're very nice and to themselves, but they expect to be greeted, and they appreciate just a few words. They really do. So, hola, ciao, adios, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Even if you can't roll your tongue and the way they do it, it doesn't matter. Por favor, gracias. The next one's very important. Cuando costas? That's how much does it cost? And then if you have to just do your fingers, you get it going. And they like that. I mean, you tend to get a better deal if you're trying just a little bit. And then, of course, the counting, uno, dos, tres. I learned a little Spanish. in school, but not that much. And then your basic no habla español. And I did that a lot. So you really do need to learn a few of the phrases just to kind of break the ice. And then the next thing, there's so many apps now. There's so many language translation apps. If you have a smartphone, get one of those, learn how to use it, and then, let it help you communicate. So that's important, because I was really shocked that there wasn't that many people who spoke English. The next thing is do carry cash on you daily. Mexico is still pretty much totally a cash society, the way I see it, especially all the different things that you're going to be doing in Mexico City. So, every day before you go out, depending on what you want to do, determine really how much cash you want to bring, and that's how much you're going to have to live on. Do get smaller bills. You will be able to use your credit cards, and I do suggest to do that for large purchases, as well as a lot of the restaurants and upscale shops. So if there's any problem with it, or it breaks or anything like that, if you use your credit card, you've got a few more options with it. I know I bought something and it's being shipped. And I thought, well, if there's a problem with it not coming, then, I could eventually get it credited off of the account. But, well, first of all, try to find a money changing place close to your hotel, because not all hotels change money. On top of that, don't think you can go into a bank, even if it's the biggest bank in Mexico City, to change dollars. You have to have an account. Oh. Yes, I had that happen to me when I was at one of the markets, and I wanted to buy a few more things. So I went down the street because I had seen the bank when I had eaten lunch. So I went in there and they said, no, sorry, you don't have an account there. And I went, what? Then they showed me where the ATM machines were, and it didn't interface with my debit or, So carry the amount of cash that you want to use every day and set your limit. Well, I had...
You kind of had to there,
Yeah, I did. But I want to caution you, because it's a little bit like Russia. Russia, you can't just go and get rubles or change your money easy or whatever. It's much more, you have to be strategic about it. So find where the money changer is close to your hotel, and then make sure that the day before, that evening or whatever, go get you whatever you need in terms of cash, because you don't want to be without cash in Mexico City. And most cabs don't take credit cards. Yes. No. So, it's like going back 20 years in certain ways. Okay. The next thing is tipping is expected in Mexico, really for all service personnel, 10, 15, 20%. Your hotel, housekeepers, anybody that does something for you, you really should tip, because, well, first of all, it's proper and it's expected, but the minimum wage in Mexico City, and maybe all through Mexico, is $8 a day. So, I mean, that's hard for an American to believe that. And then the last thing is, don't carry your passport with you. I always suggest make sure you make a photocopy of basically the informational page, which has your photograph on it, the passport number, and the basic expiration date, and the basic information that title page of your passport has. Lock your passport up in the room safe, but carry the identification with you, with, the photo of who you are on the copy. Then when you come into this to Mexico, you will be given an immigration form. Don't lose that immigration form. Stick it in your passport because you have to have it to board your plane to leave. And if you don't, they will fine you and you could miss your plane. So don't just think this is a piece of paper. It doesn't make any difference. You'll get another one at the airport. Don't, because they make money off of this for starters. But it's part of the way that they control people who come in and out of the country. So that's very important. So those are my basic do's and don'ts for Mexico City. Not a lot, but just basics.
When you were talking about the money, and I know you're great with offering safety tips. Do you have any sort of safety tips for Mexico City?
Yes, because before I went, I was a little bit concerned about really what the safety was going to be like. I mean, I had read a lot and I knew there were issues in definitely certain parts of Mexico, which I would not travel solo to. But Mexico City seemed to be okay. There were some alerts about some demonstrations. And, Mexico, it's still pretty political. They have a lot of people that if they don't like something, they get a group together and they, are out there with their flags and that kind of thing. But, so I didn't totally know what to expect. Well, I found Mexico City to be very safe, and I'm a blonde with long hair. And I only saw one other blonde the whole week that I was there. And I had no problems. Now, I basically dressed down. I pulled my hair up in certain times when I was in markets. And I definitely didn't flaunt anything. And I wear a hat a lot of times. So, if you don't look like you're asking for trouble, a lot of times, everything is cool. You won't have any problems. But, Mexico City, again, is huge. And there are some areas that are very dangerous for solo women travelers. So these are kind of my common, or my safety tips that coming back from Mexico City, I would share. As I share with all the places I travel, especially the ones that I don't speak the language, I've never been to before, I can't read the print, but I still want to go, and I go. Use your common sense. That is first and foremost the foundation of being safe. You have to think. You have to think with common sense. You can't just, not think like that, because that's kind of letting your guard down. So common sense, first of all. Well, that's the basics. The first tip is choose a hotel in a safe area. And that's one of the reasons why I say so many times, especially for older solo travelers, like some of the young kids, they love to do the hostels, etc. And my focus really is affordable luxury. So I do things, with a luxury focus, but I don't like to blow money per se. But choose a good hotel, 4-star that's highly rated, or 5-star in these areas. And there's not really any good 5-star or great 4-star hotels in bad areas. It just doesn't work like that in Mexico City. But the historic center, modern Polanco, Roma, and Condesa are the 4 areas where most travelers find these types of hotels. So, and then personally, I know lots of people like Airbnb, but for Mexico City, unless you speak Spanish, unless you are very comfortable and you have a little familiarity, I would be pretty hesitant. I wouldn't even do it to my first trip to Mexico City as a solo traveler, stay in Airbnb, because here again, there are pocket areas that are bad everywhere. And if you're not in a hotel where you can discuss it with the concierge, make sure you know what areas to avoid. I mean, you might put yourself in harm's way and you never realized it. Something unfortunate happens.
It's funny. As soon as you mentioned Airbnb, it popped into my head. I thought maybe your third or fourth visit to Mexico City, that would be something you could do when you're more familiar. You can kind of zone in on where they are.
Yeah, no, really and truly. I mean, I think that unless you can speak some Spanish and you're brave, but I think you are making yourself a little more vulnerable than you should. Okay, don't save money. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't
Don't scrimp
money and compromise your safety. Period. Okay. Next, the very common sense is don't walk the streets at night alone. Now, I say that in Polanco, where I was staying on the edge of the older district of Roma. It was fine to walk on the streets till about 9 o'clock. If it's around your hotel, an immediate area, and you can tell, and the sun doesn't go down until about 8:30. So, 9, 9:30, 10 max late. Don't be out on the street after that because, Mexicans don't really stay up that late and go wild partying. I mean, on the weekend, now Friday and Saturday, there's a lot of stuff, but, anything past 9 o'clock, you're putting yourself, you're allowing yourself to be more vulnerable. So I just say don't walk the streets at night after 9. Okay. Then don't flaunt your valuables. Dress conservatively. Really no jewelry. If you want earrings or whatever, just simple, inexpensive jewelry. Your expensive cameras, oh my gosh, those are very, very vulnerable. And lots of people now don't even carry them. They just use their smartphones. Designer purses. Lots of ladies love beautiful purses, and I'm one of them, but I do not take anything like that because you'll have some problems just for somebody wanting to yank your purse off your arm. So don't even think about bringing it. The worst problem in Mexico City really is the pickpocket problem. And the pickpocket problem is around the main sites to see on the subway, just where there are a whole lot of people, where people tend to get into each other's space. That could happen. And in the markets, several times I had some of the people who were vendors in the markets tell me, watch out, watch out, watch out. So the pickpockets are really probably your biggest thing you're going to have to worry about. If you don't do, if you're not out after, 11:30 at night, just wandering around, which I don't think most people would.
Did you wear a money belt this time, or did you just use your crossbody purse?
Crossbody. No, crossbody with an anti-slash
strap.
A strap, okay. Yeah. So, and that's good enough. Okay. Then another thing, I've mentioned this before on some of my podcasts when we talk about safety, is get the hotel's calling card with the name of the hotel, the address, and the phone number, and carry it in your purse or in your backpack, but have it with you whenever you leave the hotel. Because invariably, if you do have to get a cab, or you have a restaurant get you a cab, and they tell you to go la 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 on Front Street, well, there might be 10 Front Streets. And the gentleman who is explaining to the cab driver for you tells him, and he doesn't totally know
where you're going.
Yeah. So with the card, you can show him the Front Street in this particular neighborhood, etc. And anytime you would have an issue, you have something to show whoever to get you back to your hotel. So that's really important. When you check in, just say, do you have, I'd like to have a card, a hotel calling card in case I need it. So that's important. 5, and this, Catherine's, every time I say this, she's go, boy, you need to be sponsored by this program. But enroll in the STEP program, which is the Smart Travelers Enrollment Program. It is offered by the U.S. State Department, their travel section. And what it does is for any American citizen traveler, you can put all of your information into a database about where you will be, the dates you will be, where you're staying, who your relatives are, how they can contact you, everything. So if you have a problem, if you are in an accident, for say, or if somebody does steal your purse with all your credit cards and your smartphone and all your cash, and you don't have any money, you are in their database. So what you do is you find some hotel or whatever to call the U.S. Embassy if you don't have access to your phone anymore, and introduce who you are, tell them you're in the STEP program, and they will help you automatically with working through with whatever problem that you have, as well as if there's any problem where you're traveling, like if there's a natural disaster or if there's some political unrest that, they feel Americans could potentially be in harm's way. They'll send you text messages and emails saying, avoid blah, 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 or we suggest that, you leave Mexico City within 36 hours or whatever. So, but the bottom line is you have got that resource and they're already connected to you. They know your family members. Say you're in a really bad accident and you end up in the hospital. You really are not that together to where you can communicate. Once they realize that you have been, have had this happen to you, they'll contact your relatives and they'll speak with the doctors, and they have so many wonderful resources. So enroll in the STEP program, as well as do keep a copy of the address and the phone number of the U.S. Embassy in your purse, just to have it handy or remember it. Okay. Next, keep your phone fully charged. And this one is a problem for me because I take a lot of photos, etc. But in Mexico City, it seemed like my phone ran down a lot quicker.
I've been in altitude areas before, and it affects the battery life.
Well, I don't know what it is, but it was like 1:00 in the afternoon. I was out of juice.
Oh, no.
And that's bad for somebody like me. So get you some of those booster batteries, and have them fully charged. Put them in your purse or your backpack. And when your phone gets going down, stick it in there and, give it a good boost. 'Cause I'm telling you, that's the worst feeling, I think, as solo traveler, is if you're somewhere and then, 3:00 your phone goes down, then you really start feeling, ooh, I don't know. Yeah. It's a bad feeling. I always, if that happens to me and I forgot my booster, I buy another one. So now I have like 10. Okay. And next, communicate with your loved ones or your friends, whoever you're close to, on a regular basis. It doesn't have anything to do with your safety per se in Mexico City, but it's all part of the safety net that you need to have when you're traveling. So, your relatives know you are okay, because if you don't communicate and 5 days later, something has happened, they don't know it, and then, maybe somebody could have intervened quicker to stop something very bad. So do that. And it doesn't matter whether it's just a text or, a short email. Some people like to still call. I don't ever call unless I really need to talk to my husband. Because he's going to be saying, well, did you do this? Why didn't you do this? You better come home. Stuff like that. So, and then be careful with social media. Because, well, first of all, if you want to post, don't post like you're all by yourself or, I had a great time. Just don't say that. You might just be you sitting down, but just do it with a little bit of caution. I've never had any problem with it. I do post selfies and, I am a travel blogger and have this website, Astrid Solo Travel Advisor. So my whole thing is solo travel. But a lot of times I'll post the selfies and some of the things that I did that I want to highlight after I come home. And I post some of just the generic photos when I'm there. So just be careful with it. That's all I'm saying. The next one is, if you feel uncomfortable somewhere or somebody's stressing you out, find a hotel, find a restaurant, museum, shop, just go in there. And I've done that a few times. Every now and then I'll think, is that idiot following me? Or something like that. And even if the person is not, trust your gut. If you are feeling there's something not right, just trust it. Go into somewhere where there are people that you can do some kind of communication, get yourself either reset or have them call you a cab to go to your hotel. Just vacate the area. That's and I have actually done that before. Yeah. And I think that I probably was overreacting, but I was glad I did it. I just went back to the hotel. I'm sure I had a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and then I figured, well, what am I going to do next? Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is, if you're doing something in the evening, like I said, my mariachi night, and then I went to a folklore beautiful show one night, I had somebody bring me there. The hotel arranged it. And for the folklore show, I had a driver waiting at 11:30 when I came out right in front of the theater. The mariachi, I had actually a guide with me the whole night and a driver. But it's so well worth the money. And then you can go out and do these fun things. You know what I'm saying? I mean, some people might be a little uncomfortable that they're doing it solo, but when I had this guide, I wasn't solo. And he was so nice. He took me and showed me all these different monuments, and we watched the shaman ceremony, and he was explaining different things about that. And it made the evening even more, even more delightful. So I'm going to wrap this part up by saying I really think Mexicans in general are just so pleasant. They're peaceful. They're private people. They don't approach strangers as a general rule. And, if somebody seems too friendly, just say, adios, no habla español. But I really, like I said, I didn't have any problems, and I never felt endangered.
Oh, good. That's great.
I didn't. I really didn't. And I expected to feel possibly that I was going to have to get a driver or have something that would break that threat of maybe I would be in danger. So I didn't have to do that. I walked a lot. And I went in and out of those markets. And like I said, I'm a blonde with long blonde hair, and there are no blondes in Mexico City.
If you're feeling swayed by summer, you want to get out there and travel, we encourage you to do that. But of course, you do have to pack your bags before you go. Astrid has something that's going to make it just a little bit easier. She has an amazing packing list. All you have to do is go to her website, astridtravel.com. Right there on the homepage, there's a place. You just pop in your email and you'll be able to download the packing list right away. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, all of the finer places that podcasts can be found. We encourage and request that you subscribe to Solo Travel Talk. Why? Not only does it help the show, but it also pushes the show out to other potential solo travelers. We want to get this information out to people. So thanks for subscribing. Thank you so much for listening. Hasta luego. We'll see you next time on Solo Travel Talk.
Thank you for listening to Solo Travel Talk. Follow Astrid on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. To learn more about Astrid or Solo Travel Advisors, visit our website, astridtravel.com.